easy here, guys and gals. Well, hope you're all well, and it is Monday. I guess you know the script by now. On Monday, I usually do a few tags, and today will be no exception. This is some way in my eyes. Let's see if I can get a little bit better. So back to the script. So, no exception, and I will, as usual, be starting with Jasmine's 5-question tag. Hi there, Jasmine. Hope you're doing well. And let's get going. Okay. Question 1. Do you think people are born lucky, or do people make their own luck? I don't actually think that people are born lucky or unlucky. I think basically we're born and things happen, put it that way. I mean, I don't think things happen by chance, and at the same time I don't think that people are more or less lucky. Now, having said that, I have to admit that when I was a kid, we would go to card games and things like that, and I always had the impression that it was always the same people that were winning. So there is that expression, they're born under a lucky star. But I think that, I think in a lot of things, it's a question for many people. See, that's kind of warm. For many people, it's almost, at times, almost a question of attitude. I'm not talking about lottery or stuff like that, but there is a question sometimes of confidence, the way, even in games, the way you play. The best people that I knew that were card players, and it didn't have to be poker or whatever, were those that had what you call the poker face, or the knowledge of how to bluff their way through things and stuff like that. There's a lot of that people just take for luck, and then it's just kind of bravado, I guess. But just to answer the question, I don't think that people are born lucky. When you say do people, the second part was, do people make their own luck? Well, in large part, actually, the way they work and things, if it's in life or whatever, yeah, in the large part. But, a lot of people say, I just don't have any good breaks. And for some people, frankly, it's just that. I don't think it's anything, I'll put it this way. I don't believe in that lucky star theory. Okay. Question 2. What do your friends just do not get? Okay, what do your friends just do not get about you? Well, my friends, when I was working, since I was working in the science field, many didn't get that I was should I use the word man of faith? Because that kind of sounds uppity. But that I was a Christian believer. And I didn't get that they didn't get it. Because I find that as a scientist, there's just so many reasons to believe. But anyway, that's a vlog on its own, I guess. But that's one thing. And a lot of my friends are progressives, so to say. I don't call it progressive because, frankly, I don't find that's a state of progress. But you know what I mean. It's the words it's used. It's the vocabulary it's used. And I'm more conservative. And a lot of my friends say, well, I don't get that. You shouldn't be that way. And I just kind of say, well, that goes along with my person, my morals, my beliefs, and so on. Yeah, those are 2 things that people don't get about me. Question 3. Do you like being you? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Do I think I'm perfect? Oh, for sure not. Do I think I'm even sometimes a nasty person? I can be, I suppose. But overall, I like who I am, and it's a good thing. If you don't like who you are, it's going to be a pretty bad life, because you got to live with yourself, don't you? And I mean, actually, you'll see that not like who they are, well, they're in a bad spot very quickly. They'll fall into depression, might be suicidal. Uh, there's a lot, to that. Now, I'm not saying that you always like what you've become. You might not always like what you have to live through and the way it makes you. That can happen in life for sure. But life will be a lot easier if you like yourself. If you like yourself, you will probably end up doing the right things sometimes where you would not have if you did not like yourself. Okay, question 3. That was question 3. Question 4. How much do you rely on other people? Not all that much, actually. I rely on Mrs. DC. I would say, in a way, on her, yes, a lot. But I think she relies on me a lot. We're a couple, and I think that we mutually rely on each other. So, amongst each other, yes, I would say probably quite a bit. On other people, not really all that much. For example, I don't rely on somebody for I don't need anybody for my cooking. I don't need anybody for my for taking care of my my finances or stuff like that. I'm not very manual, so I guess I would probably rely on people for some very carpentry or stuff like that. But that's not the same, I guess, is what's meant here. Do I rely on people emotionally? Well, like I mentioned Mrs. DC before, probably for the family. But am I able to? Am I able to get along on my own? Basically yes. We're not talking about spiritual stuff here. We're just talking about, I was going to say, material stuff. And in this world, I don't rely very much on other people in that respect. No. And question 5, when do you feel most alone? It might be, there's times like I say, when I'm out with friends. It kind of fits into the other question that we had earlier. What do your friends do not get about you? If I'm in an outing with friends a few times a year, well, 1 or 2 times a year, I'll be out with some of my man friends, and like I say, all of a sudden they start discussing about things, and I have emigrated into Switzerland. They are guys that were brought up here. So there are things, sometimes they get into chatting about things. It might be their military service. It might be things like that, which I arrived in Switzerland in my late 20s. So I didn't go through that. I didn't do my schooling in Switzerland. So those are times when I feel alone because they're chatting about things that they know and I don't. I've seen it with my boys, so I know what it's like. But yeah, and other times where I feel alone, so those are times when I feel alone, which I kind of feel isolated. Other times when I feel alone is very simply, again, when I used to be working and I'd go for lunch, I'd always go alone. I'd feel alone, but it was not a negative thing. It was far from it. It was even a very positive thing. I was very happy to be alone. And it's actually not a negative thing. Feeling isolated is different to feeling alone. Like I say, when I was feeling isolated, like the example with my friends, I didn't feel like at ease or part of the whole thing. If I'm alone and I feel alone, I don't mind. I'm actually very happy to be alone. Like I like to travel alone. I like to travel with Mrs. DC as well. But I've said this many times before. I actually quite enjoy traveling alone and being my own boss or doing things when I want and stuff like that. So when do you feel most alone? Um, Probably when I was traveling, and there was moments, like I say, where all of a sudden you would feel maybe isolated. Most of all, I would feel alone, but in very much the positive sense. I think I'm going to stop there. I think I've answered all the questions, and I'm up to 10 minutes. So thank you, Jasmine. I don't know how well I answered these questions, but I did my best. Take care. And